Hey, welcome back to the Our Town podcast. Today we have Josh Holloway with 7DI Technologies.
Yep.
And they just changed their name. What was the name change all about?
Oh, that's actually a really funny one because I thought I was Coca-Cola long before I was Coca-Cola. So the original name was just Seventh Dimension, and I came up with it when I was super young, just getting into consulting, and I went with a short name. But it doesn't tell you what we do. So when you receive marketing, when we finally started doing marketing, people are like, what's Seventh Dimension? And we got really heavy into marketing 4 years ago, and I've always toyed around with the idea like our name needs to speak a little bit more to what we do. And that's where it came about, really. We wanted to mix in like the technologies. I mean, so many times people are like, I run an IT company, so it's going to be networks or it's going to be solutions or for us, because we cover so many different things, we went with technologies, but we wanted people to open up our marketing material and be like, okay, this is a tech company. Somebody's marketing to me regarding technology. So that's kind of where it branded. We kept the seventh and the seventh DI because we always kind of in the background called ourselves seventh DI. So it was kind of like, okay, well, the short name works really well and our domain works really well, but still, even if we went with 7DI, nobody would know who we were. So you definitely had to add something to it.
Add
the short and the long answer to it.
Nice. And so what's your role with them?
So I'm the CEO. I originally started 7DI back in 1999. I was 19 years old. I started consulting. One of my first consulting gigs was a grueling 1 week, 20 to 22 hours a day consulting gig, moving a company in the Bay Area from, it was Palo Alto down to like San Jose. We worked, like I said, 22 hours a day. We slept for 45 minutes. We drove for 30 where we were staying. And I never have been so sick in my life. But when you stay up for a week, like you become delirious. That's kind of how I got started. And then I always wanted to own my own business. So what I did is I just kind of continued doing the consulting on the side. I worked for big companies. I worked for Earthlink when, I hate to say it, when they were relevant and people knew who they were. I think now most people don't.
Oh, I guarantee she doesn't know who Earthlink is.
Yeah, she's like, what's an Earthlink?
Is that a security system?
No, Earthlink was like the original
dial-up
ISP.
Next to AOL, like when you got mail? Yeah. They were like the direct competitors. So the funny thing was in my cubicle structure with all of my guys, we started collecting all of the discs that would be sent out. And I know a lot of IT guys have that story, but there was just so much mail for the dial-up. So I worked there, and I also worked at HP. The entire time I was kind of building the whole consulting side of things. So I worked a lot of hours.
Yeah. Now you're the CEO. So what is your role? What do you oversee for the...
Yeah, for me, it's growth. We're looking at M&A, so mergers and acquisitions. I oversee sales and marketing. I still very periodically get my hands dirty when it comes to tech. So I'll go out. Sometimes I'll work on stuff. I like the ongoing continual education. So I'll just every once in a while I'll go back out. I'll help. But primarily that's my role is to kind of steer the ship, look for new companies to buy or merge with, and then the sales and marketing side, which I do a lot of the sales.
Okay. Yeah. So what are a list of the features that you guys do for your company? Like, what is it that all the different aspects of your company? Yeah, so the easy answer, and I know a lot of people probably just be like, yep, yeah, they're an IT company. We work on computers, laptops, printers, desk, all that. But what really sets us apart is our continuing education and our thriving in cybersecurity, right? So we spend a lot of time. We have like military contractor style contracts that require us to do NIST and CMMC, and then we've done a lot of medical, a lot of financial, and a lot of these business lines require you to understand the compliance. All the compliances that get handed down from like HIPAA and all the other ones that I named. So it's that continuing education that keeps us going. And then we turn around and we find a way to
use that across all business types. So the way I looked at it and kind of how I set this up was eventually there's going to be a law that gets pushed down, a requirement that gets pushed down. And we're starting to see that now with the FTC, where they're pushing a lot of new laws down on financial firms, right? Like you have to see two-factor, you have to be doing encryption. Now, we've been doing that for years. That's because we kind of saw this coming. Like I could remember having conversations with my tax preparers and saying, hey, I know the IRS said that two-factor is a good idea. It's mandatory. And you'll see it be mandatory in about a year and a half. And it's that forward thinking and kind of saying like, hey, when my clients come to me freaking out going, hey, did we encrypt everything? Well, yeah, that's part of our standard. Everything gets encrypted. We utilize two-factor. We look at the risk, and it's risk mitigation. Like I hate being the guy that tells the owner, hey, sorry, you can't do that because you're going to open yourself up. Our goal is to look at the business, look at their softwares, their line of business, how they function, the people that use their stuff, and then how do we mitigate the risk? We can't eliminate risk. Like I would love to be able to tell you and everybody who's listening that we could 100% stop a hack.
Yeah.
There's nobody that can 100% stop it from happening. But we can mitigate it, and we can mitigate it through education. So all of our clients, they have access to a whole bunch of training. We actually not just provide the training and walk away, we ensure that the training gets done and that it's completed and everybody passes, because a lot of the cyber liability policies that are so fun to read, they require it. And then they require proof that you did it. And if somebody failed, they require proof that they were re-educated. And a lot of people don't read that policy, where we have been. And we are trying to make sure that the insurance company can never come back and say, hey, sorry, because Jan in accounting didn't finish her password complexity training and she was the one that got hacked because her password was super weak. We're not going to cover you. Good luck.
We need to change our passwords.
Please stop using password or password 1234.
It's just like the same thing for everything.
It's like, tell me your password. Is it password?
That one's actually a fun game. But I've guessed some people's passwords just after a year, like time interacting with them, or there's a lot of gotchas. People always put their passwords hidden in the same spot. They think they're being like really original, and their passwords are so easy to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I froze you guys up because you're like thinking, oh my God, he's going to look under there, isn't he?
We should have him come in for sure.
Yeah, and that's actually a good thing, though, that you mentioned that, because it's not just digital forensics, it's also physical, because some people will give themselves away just on their desk. And that's one of it's the craziest training. It's like clean desk policy. And it literally talks about like, don't put your passwords under your keyboard. Don't put it under your monitor. Don't attach it to your monitor. Don't put it, if you have a monitor shelf, people typically will slide the passwords in there. Yeah, don't. We all know about it. Every IT guy, good or bad, we all kind of know the tricks of the trades.
That was a really big thing. When I worked for Verizon, they had absolutely no CP&I policy.
Yeah.
So no, you couldn't leave any receipts out, nothing. They had that double shredder that we were talking about. So you could not have like any paperwork out ever.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people forget is, humans come in and out of our office all the time, but then there's like third party, right? We have cleaners come in. We didn't necessarily vet the cleaners, and our cleaner company will tell us, like everything is vetted, but people are human. Like they may just be down and out and they need extra money, and they'll see somebody's enough information to get their identity, and it actually takes very little, and then boom, like that was a leakage, so it's that stuff to consider, right?
Yeah.
I had a quick question, because I know that you said that you partner with medical businesses and something with like military and things of that sort. Do you also partner with like smaller businesses, or is there anything that you can help with? As far as
So
business?
we partner. We have our set verticals. You named us a couple of them. Financial firms. I love financial firms because there's so many nuances. Plus, there's so much information to protect. But we help a lot of businesses. We have clients that are like 2 seats. And then we go all the way up to 3,000 or 4,000 seats. And we do that because there's the idea that I had, one, making it through all of HP's layoffs to be laid off a month after they said all the layoffs were done, everything's cool. It was kind of that not every egg in the basket. But then I also felt like we could help companies of different sizes And the small shops, they are the biggest target because they do the least amount to protect themselves, because typically the mindset is like, I'm so small, why do they want my information? And they're the biggest, and we have to do whatever we can to protect them. So we definitely like working with small shops or SMBs, just to help protect them, because
What's SN?
So small medium businesses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So SMB.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
SMB,
Okay.
yeah. And the biggest thing is what most people don't realize is in a ransomware, which I'll talk about in a second, how that threatscape has changed. But in an attack, 90% of your businesses are not going to recover if they didn't take adequate steps to protect. And now, so hackers, when they come in, it's not a one-day thing. It's a 60, 90, 120-day thing where they've gotten in a long time ago, and they just sit back and wait, and they just gather information. And then they realize that they can sit there for a while because there's nothing stopping them. And that's when somebody will come in the next morning and they've been ransomware and everything's been locked out. But that's months in the making. It's very rare that it's a single-day attack. So it's kind of super important to be protecting ahead of time versus like after the fact. And then with ransomware, because the insurance companies are losing billions, trillions of dollars. I mean, you add it up, they're losing a lot right now. They've come down on what they're going to protect. And they're looking for, like any other insurance claim, how do they not have to shell out all this money? So one of the things that they're doing is no ransomware. We're not paying. I mean, even the FBI has pulled back some of the ransomware payments. The pipeline down in the South, when it got hit, they paid in Bitcoin, and the FBI pulled it back after everything was taken care of and fixed, and they were able to pull it back. Nobody knows why. I'm sure there's a couple people out there that know how they did it, but it's something that shouldn't have been able to be done. But they pulled it back, and the idea is can't pay the ransomware anymore. So now they've kind of shifted from, hey, we're going to encrypt your data, to we're going to blackmail you. I have all your if I come in and I hack you, my goal is to take as much information as possible and then use it. So I'm going to blackmail you. So the idea is you're going to pay me money so that I don't tell all of your clients that you've been hacked, or I don't tell all your clients that I'm going to take all this information. You're probably going to think twice about ever inviting me again. So it's how we mitigate that threat so that they don't get blackmailed, they don't get ransomware. And the insurance companies, it's just getting harder and harder for the coverage. We need it, and we need IT companies to ensure that each customer is like 100% in line with their insurance policy, because IT companies are getting sued now. And they're coming after the IT company because the IT company said, oh yeah, we do X, Y, and Z. And maybe a computer got forgot, and that's the one that got hit. So like MSPs like myself, which is managed service provider, they have to be doing a lot to make sure that they're covered. So for us, this is what we think about. This is how we're always setting up our clients, is mitigate their risk, mitigate our risk, everybody's protected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question. So does like McAfee and those things, do they protect you from anything?
Honestly, that's a great question. We're not going to favor any one thing. So
any of them.
Yeah. So think antivirus, right? Antivirus is a definition based. That means they've seen the virus. Now, programs are getting smarter where there's a whole bunch of different aspects to antivirus, but it has its own place. It's looking for a virus. Ransomware is not a virus. Something entirely different. But you don't just get rid of antivirus. You have to have that and a couple other pieces of software. Think of it like your car, right? You're not going to rip out the airbag because you have a seatbelt, and you're not going to rip out the seatbelt because you have an airbag. But you're going to keep both because those are going to help you hopefully survive a crash, protect you from major bodily harm. An antivirus is your seatbelt, because that's a little bit older of a technology. Antivirus is like your seatbelt, and MDR or EDR, this is our nomenclature, but what it is it's active hacker threat monitoring. That's your airbag.
Yeah.
And then there's other things. We could go into accident avoidance, collisions,
So the ransomware is like the actual like act where like there's a group of people or whatever hackers like behind the scenes like blackmailing you for a certain amount of money.
Yeah. So typically, I mean, there's companies just around being hacker groups for ransomware.
Wasn't
There's a
there
lot of money to be
something
made.
like that like a few years ago? This was also when I was working at Verizon, but it's just like all like ringing bells that there was this huge situation with a tech company where they had to pay like over $1 million to someone overseas. Otherwise, they were going to tell all their clients that they released all of their information or that
Yeah.
they stole their information.
Yeah, that actually happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
It does, and they're supposed to notify, but I don't. Not every company notifies. I don't think.
Wow.
I mean, that's just purely my opinion for what I see in the background. Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's rings. The cartels are in on it. Like, they see a lot of dollars.
So what is an ideal tech package then that you would present to somebody? Like,
Oh, yeah. So the ideal is full coverage, right? Are they providing antivirus? Are they providing, and I know I'm using an acronym for, it's managed detection remediation. So MDR sounds a little bit prettier than all those words. And then application white fencing. So what that means is it's a piece of software that makes your applications do what they're supposed to, even when a hacker attempts to exploit that. So the easy way to answer is like we use an application that, say you get an email, looks like a normal Excel file. You open up the Excel file. In the background, you don't know what it's doing. It's just opening up Excel, and maybe that file just doesn't look right to you. But it actually went out and opened up some operating system files and started to embed code or download its own payload, like things to kind of circumvent. Our software looks for that and stops it, and then we log and we respond. So a full package would be having software pieces like that to protect the systems. Like I said, you got your seatbelt, you got your airbag, and you got your collision avoidance system. You know, we're basically building a whole car.
it's a Tesla.
It's a Tesla.
Yeah.
Minus the 45 minutes to charge. You know, and the big thing is backups. How often things are tested. I hate the terminology like set it and forget it, because when you set it and you forget it, that's where like ransomware will embed in the backups. You lose your backups. So when you try and recover, both sides are done. Like you can't just set it and forget it. You want a company that is reviewing everything, and then they're reviewing policies and procedures, because our biggest threat, I know we've talked a lot about like ransomware and virus, is the human element, because the human element will always be the weak link. We'll always let it in. And we have applications that we work alongside artificial intelligence to help us with this threat monitoring. That, you know, it can compute 1,000 times faster than we can. So it comes to us when it's like, I think I see something, but I need human eyes on, which is kind of fun because we're like working alongside a computer program. But it's those packages, right? But then it's the human element. Like, are they training my staff? Is it ongoing? Or is it like, oh, we train you once and you're fine? It's no. It's ongoing. It's yearly, and it's any new staff, any promotions. So a lot of things, when people don't think about this, is when promotions happen inside of businesses, the IT company needs to make sure that the permissions match the job role. Because if you think sometimes a promotion could take you into a spot that you no longer need to have access to sensitive material, or vice versa. Sensitive material can just be employee records. So that should be looked at. So that's where the IT company really shines, is if they're like, we are checking everything, and we're installing a lot of stuff to help protect you. So that's our base package. Yeah. Right there. That's where we start out. And then we have add-ons for compliancies. Like if somebody has a lot of compliancies and it requires a lot of extra, we have softwares that take it to the next level, and then it takes our reporting and all of our monitoring to the next level. So it's really based on the business and the business need.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was doing a loan for the assistant to the controller, the controller of California.
Nice.
And she got an email from her boss they needed a check for $250,000 or something like that. This was a while ago.
Yeah.
And she got it all ready, had it all set, and it said, hey, I'm taking off early today. I need you to get this set up, drop it in the mail for me. And as she was walking by his office, she saw that he was just sitting in his office.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, I thought you said you were leaving early today. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm here all day.
Yeah.
And she said, but you had me do this checkup. And dude, they would have gotten like 250 grand, like right then and there. Like, it's just wild how they crack.
And that's where the training comes in, because most likely, and this will get scarier as this conversation goes on, but most likely what they're doing is they'll get the URL, right?
Yeah.
A capital I looks the same as an L. So you have to think like a human, right? We just glance over things. We can read without fully reading a word. So if the domain and the email address looks the same, we don't think twice about it. So where training comes in is like, how is that person speaking? Are they creating a sense of urgency? Are they demanding now? Where companies are falling short is they need to put into place financial stops, where it's like, oh, okay, I will write you a check for $250K, but I have to go through these processes. I have to stop and do a verification or a second verification. We set it up with some clients where they will send 50 cents or $1, call the company and verify, and be like, hey, did you receive the 50 cents or the $1? And once they get confirmation, then they'll send the whole invoice. But we help them build that in because the cyber policies won't typically cover that. The other thing to take into consideration there too is so when something financial happens, you have 72 hours to notify the FBI. Depending on the dollar amount, they'll act. But you have a very small window, and a lot of times the banks can't pull the money back. So that window is like super thin. So keep that in mind, right? 72 hours. If that happens on a Friday and you don't find out until Monday, you're done. It's gone at that point.
So all attacks happen on a Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then the other caveat to that with artificial intelligence and people being able to utilize artificial intelligence to write emails, people who don't have English as a strong language, they don't have to worry about it any longer. They just give it prompts. It writes this nice email about it, and then that's what they're using. So what we try and teach everybody is look for the sense of urgency. And would that person normally demand you have to do something that quick? That's the giveaway, especially now that the English side of it's being written perfectly, or any other language it's written in.
I do remember that's even happened just like within our smaller company, because I've gotten a few text messages that I've showed you that say that they're from you. And it's like, hey, it's Chris, something random.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you send me this text message from a different phone number? And you're like, no, that's not me. This happens a lot.
Yeah.
Or I'll get emails.
It's funny. They'll all get it too. It'll be like bang, bang, bang. Everybody will get it, and they'll be like, didn't one day you said like, hey, do you need me to do this? Or it was something. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, why would I need you to give me $100? You know, I'm supposed to be paying you.
The text messaging thing is a good quick prompt to make you respond very quickly, to take you out of your element, because the email doesn't always work, and certain phones are a little bit more susceptible, so they want you to click a link or they want you to go and do something. The other thing that we found, like with my team, is so I do webinars every other month for cybersecurity and other topics, but typically when we announce my webinar, within about a week, all of my team begins to receive text messages from me asking for things. It's almost like clockwork. And then there's been times where I've been sitting next to my business partner, and he's like, why did you just text me about needing something? And I'm just like, I do not need Apple gift cards.
I did not you got an Apple gift card too? Yeah.
It's so weird.
Well, and the gift card thing, humans are humans, right? They're gonna find a way. You build a better mouse trap. You build a better mouse. Like, even gift cards are scary now, because people are printing barcodes and overlaying gift cards in various places that you could pick them up. And that barcode is a gift card, but the money goes to the perpetrator instead of it filling the gift card for you to use elsewhere. And the sticker is so small and thin over the barcode that it's you have to really look at it.
Wait, so what you're saying when you go into a grocery store and you buy a gift card, they'll put a sticker over the top of that.
Yeah.
And then when you pay, it goes to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost
like
wish I was a
my
thief.
children, I was like, hey, no more gift cards unless we're like buying them directly online.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Directly like from the
online directly from the store.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you just don't know.
Yeah.
And these are all the different things that you can run up against.
Yeah. So it's funny. I just got nationwide licensed, and my license runs through a depository bank out of the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And at first, I was just like, there's so many trainings. The trainings are insane. Just every day it would be like, you didn't finish this training. You didn't finish. I'm like, what are all these trainings? And then it was all like, it's all the stuff that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll even send fake emails to me on purpose. Mm-hmm. And I was going through, and I'm brand new to this particular aspect of lending, right? This nationwide lending. And so I'm going through my emails, and I was like, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it looks pretty legit. And I click on it, it's like, you were just fake hacked.
Gotcha.
And I was like, no, I fell for it, you know? So it literally can happen anyway. Do you do things like that? Do you?
Yeah, we do. It's funny too, because when I'm telling new clients, I'm like, hey, we're onboarding you. This is how it's going to go. This is when your training's going to drop. Oh, and periodically when we want to, we're never going to tell you, but we're going to start to attack your
fake hack. Or fake attack.
Yeah, fake attack your employees.
Would that be called a attack?
Yeah, attack.
Isn't it called like a phishing attack?
Yeah, that's a phishing attack.
I've had it at both the last places I worked at because they were both tech companies, and one of them was one of those like depository banks, so it was nationwide. So they would always send us fake emails, and they look legit, but you do so much training on it, like one letter might be off or one word is like slightly misspelled.
Yeah.
And if you delete it, you'll get an additional email saying you passed the phishing attack, or you'll get an email saying you like failed it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I think what's fun is the when we do the test and the company is so confident, they're like, oh, we'll never fall prey. And you're like, no, it's humans are humans. Don't disqualify what we're about to do, because you'll be amazed at what happens. And typically those are our highest gotchas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where we've had people that are like, we'll never fall prey to it. And I'm like, well, you had 3 employees give us information.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why we want to do this training. And it's good because the phishing does let us know where the weaknesses are, and we just need to retrain. I think the other aspect of it too is maybe as IT companies, as well as the business that we work with, the employees that we're trying to train should not be made to feel like we're attacking them, or they feel like if I say something's happened, I will be in trouble. That's not the thing. Like, we want them to come forward and say, hey, I clicked on a link and my computer got really weird. Or I got an email and I did click the link. Tell us. Don't be afraid. Because there's certain things that we have to do now, like through incident response and jotting down everything that happened, tracing the messages, getting as much information as we can, so that if a problem does arise and the insurance company does come in and say, hey, did you guys receive an email message on this day? And we say yes. And they're like, okay, well, what'd you do about it? I'm in trouble if I said, well, we did nothing. My client's really in trouble because something happened to them and we didn't follow through. And then I can't show proof to the insurance company that we did our job. Actually, I showed them that I didn't do my job. Yeah. So the idea is through the training is make people be comfortable with raising their hand and saying, hey, I clicked on something, or I got something really weird, or the computer went really weird. A lot of times people are afraid to say something. And so we're trying to change that culture where they're afraid to speak up. And we want them to be like, nope, something happened, help me out. And that's one of the other things that we train on is being comfortable with letting us know that something happened. I know it sounds kind of like maybe trivial because it's a computer, but It's not, because bigger things happen. Like I said, the hack is 30, 60, 90, 120 days, because these guys are making so much money. They're putting in the effort. So something that you saw on day one may have led to that buildup that happens like 90 or 120 days later. So we want them to speak up, and we want them to speak up immediately, just so we can do our due diligence.
So what size of companies should be looking at this? Like you said you can do anywhere from a 2-man shop to...
Yeah, so the easy answer to that is everybody, right? But remember, the idea is to mitigate risk, right? How much risk are we willing to take on, and how much do we need to mitigate? Now, sometimes compliancy states that you have to eliminate almost as much risk as, like, all your risk as possible, or defer it, right? Like, we get insurance policies to defer our risk. We've asked the insurance company to take on the risk of a ransomware attack, but they are going to ensure that we do everything that we have to do so that they can cover us, or they get an easy out because somebody failed. But really, everybody should look at cybersecurity as, how do I mitigate my risk? Because sometimes the cost is not worth the mitigation too. So that's where a good IT company will come in and say, hey, look, like, I want to sell you $1 million worth of cybersecurity, like softwares and all of the services, but your company size does not warrant that. So, like, how do we trim this down but still protect you and still fall under the guidelines of any compliance requirements, and any insurance requirements? And then also, the other thing that a lot of people don't typically look at is their client requirements. Sometimes the client contracts will demand certain things be protected in a very specific way. Your IT company should be looking at that. They should be asking those questions. There's sometimes that we have clients, they work with other insurance vendors, and they're sending forms all the time. Are you doing X? Are you doing Y? What do your backups look like? But that's how they keep that client, right? They have to ensure. So that's a different layer of compliance. So you have to look at that too, as your client's needs and protecting them as well.
Okay. And when you do your trainings, are you doing them, are they all just online trainings? Are you doing in-person trainings? How are you doing those?
So a majority of them are online, and we have various types. So some people, it's like the idea of TikTok, right? The shorter the video with a lot of information, the better, right? People are going to retain that a little bit more. So we have things as short as 3 to 5 minute videos, and they go out in whatever interval that you want, but there's a test at the end, and we track and catalog all of that. Then we have like big, huge 1 hour full training, and there's a certification at the end of it, but each company kind of decides what do they want. A lot of people tend to lean towards the shorter videos because they know that their staff is a little bit more willing to do the shorter videos. They'll do them more often, versus we're going to sit in an hour-long classroom, which everybody's eyes are going to glaze over.
Yeah.
You know, and 40% of the data is going to be retained. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's the shorter bursts make for the stronger employees, and we actually go through it. My entire company, everything that we sell, we put on us too. So like our staff, it's funny. I've had a couple who are not necessarily in the technical side of things, but like accounts receivable, executive assistant, stuff like that. They're like, I just did this video on passwords. I learned something. I'm like, cool. Did you change your password after that? And like, yeah, I did. Like, cool, great. You know, so even inside our own company, they're learning.
We should really change our passwords.
I'm really nervous now that your passwords are password.
No, they're not. My password is not password. No, it's worse. No.
Oh man, let's not give away your password.
No. You were saying, it was kind of funny earlier. You were saying talking about passwords, and you even brought this up about the passwords being on people's desks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We don't do that here, but is it?
That's a good disclaimer.
Okay, how about this? What do you suggest people do with that? What do you suggest? Because there's so many passwords. There's so many different things.
Okay, first and foremost, do not store your password in your browser at all.
Really?
Yeah.
What about in your notes in your phone? Not saying that I have it there.
I mean, okay, easy. Here's a question: is your phone password protected?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good start of the mitigation of risk, right? Certain phones are more susceptible than others to hacks, right? So I'm not going to name names. You threw that out there.
Does it rhyme with Snapple?
Yeah, it rhymes with schmandroid.
So, but because it is password protected, which everybody should be password protecting their phones, there shouldn't be anybody out there with a phone that you can just pick up and get on. I mean, I taught several of my friends and their wives why you should not do that. Just through stealing their phones and doing different things with them.
Oh, you'd be a fun guy to have at a party.
Sometimes.
Haha, look at their vacation pitch. Oh,
Yeah, no. Yeah, close. But a password keeper is really good because there are so many passwords. Revolving or changing the passwords quasi often is better. The longer the password, the better. But also, sometimes you have to look at how certain things get hacked. So Facebook gets hacked, right? They take your password. Well, they don't just take your password. They take everything, but your password's encrypted. So they either have to work to decrypt the password, or they use it and just other systems that they're hacking, they use it and pass that hash to it, or they encrypted password to see if it will unlock. There's a lot of, I mean, if we had a lot of time, we could get into that, and I think a lot of your listeners would probably glaze over and turn off, so I don't want to do that to them. But there's a lot of different things that they could do with that. So you have to look at, okay, Facebook got hacked, what got taken? Or, I mean, every major corporation at some level has had like their passwords taken. You want to look at like why or how it was got, and then you start to change your passwords. Now, password keepers, I wish that they were 100% immune, but they're a way better choice, right? Because everything should be encrypted. Now, a password keeper was hacked at the beginning of the year, and we had one client on that password keeper. And immediately I was like, change every password. And they're like, why? We should just change our master password to get into our keeper. I was like, nope, because you don't know what was encrypted, what wasn't encrypted. Change all your passwords. So not to scare you away from a password keeper, that's like a one-off in the grand scheme of things, but a good encrypted password keeper is good. And then two-factor, anywhere and everywhere you can. If the service offers the two-factor, do it. Because that will help mitigate.
So two-factor is when you put in your password, you hit go, and then it sends you a
text messages. It'll call you with a code, email you with a code, or you'll have an authenticator app.
I have that for that
code
bank.
for you.
So every time I log into my email, I got to have my phone, and it pops up on the authenticator app, and then I got to put the number in.
Yeah.
To access.
And the other thing to also realize too, passwords, they're at the end of their life, right? So technology is changing so much because of our phones, where we can do the quick one-time use only passwords. So eventually passwords will be phased out. Newer technology will be phased in. Had COVID not happened, we would be 2 years further along in that. That got pushed out by a couple of years. So I had an opportunity to listen to Frank Abagnale, the Catch Me If You Can gentleman. I met him at a conference, and one of the things that he was talking about is he was working with the team to eliminate passwords because passwords are so archaic in the idea now because of the way technology works. He's like, we would be where we're at right now. We would have been in 2019, 2020 moving forward of eliminating passwords. We have the technology. They're finally getting around to rolling it out after, COVID and everything else. So I would say you're probably maybe another good solid year or two out, and it'll be very rare to have passwords, but you'll have some kind of additional one-time use code that gets sent to you because our phones are always connected to us. My phone's in my pocket. And, most people will have it right next to them, and it's easy to authenticate that way in one time. But then we could get into like really scary things about phones, and and stealing personal information, but I don't think we have the time for that.
Now, what areas do you service?
So, coast to coast, we have clients on both sides, but our primary focus, California, Nevada. We have an office in Reno. We have an office here in the Sacramento area, and we just keep branching out. There are ways for us to handle IT when we don't have boots anywhere near, and we can still service a client and take care of them. But our primary focus is the general greater Sacramento area, and then like Reno, Nevada, Carson City.
Nice.
Yeah.
And where are you located?
In El Dorado Hills.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our primary office.
And I talking to Julie, she said you guys are looking for more space too?
Yeah, we're expanding and growing, and we're kind of starting to bust at the seams.
Okay.
A little bit in our office space, but then with opening the Reno office, it will allow for us to displace a little bit over there, and then we just keep expanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you bringing on, how many new clients are you bringing on?
So we're averaging 2 new clients a month. Two, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's our average. Our onboarding is pretty in depth. Like I let people know, like, hey, we can take over in about 30 minutes, but realistically, if you want to have like a good interaction with us, like this is what it looks like. We're gathering information. We're doing things by the 10th day. I should have a full cyber baseline on what you guys look like, but then we take that and we analyze it and say, okay, by the 30-day mark, I should pretty much have a year budget for you of any major changes you need to do, where you're truly out like as a risk mitigation point for cybersecurity, and then
We're in the red, by the way.
and then we just kind of go from
I'm totally kidding.
we go from there.
After this conversation, I'm like scared to death.
But the idea, yeah, okay, so the idea on some level is to scare you, but it's to get movement, because I can come into a place and tell them, hey, you're not secure, and if they don't believe me, they're not going to ever do anything. But if you can show them, like, hey, like your door's open over here, we have to close this door, like you have to start to kind of show people and lead them to understand how much risk they're truly taking on. So I end up, because a lot of people are like, I just want to work on my business. I want to make money. I want to have a family or whatever life that looks like for me, and like grow and move forward. And there's certain things that sometimes get forgotten or left on the table a little bit. So that's our job to kind of uncover it. Any IT company should be kind of pointing that out.
If someone wanted to get involved in that realm, are you guys expanding? Are you hiring?
Yes. We're always hiring and always looking. Because, well, one, all industries are having a hard time finding bodies to come to work. For us, it's looking towards the future. And we're a certain size, right? And I know next year we'll be bigger. And some employees work better in a smaller environment versus a bigger environment. And then some employees thrive at the growth. So that's what we're looking for. Like when I make hires, some of my upper level management, Julie being one of them, right? She worked at large corporations, and she came down to a little itty bitty corporation, but it was that idea, like she knows what it's like to be in that big realm, and that will help us grow. So then that forces us to grow. It forces me to continue to educate myself on how to be a better CEO, how to be a better person overall day to day for our business structure. And that's what we're always looking for. We're always talking to people. We do internships when people want to just get started. They just want to touch systems. Like we'll bring in interns and kind of show them the ropes. We've done a couple of things with colleges, offered up spots to come in and work alongside of us. Pretty much, we have a couple of military vets that work with us. They came out of the technology side when they got out, and we're always looking for people.
The growth conference thing, I think, would almost be good for him to go check out, huh?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when is it? October?
It's in October.
It's in October. So there is super dynamite people called the Growth Factory out of Roseville.
Okay.
They put on this big conference called the I think it's called the Growth Conference, once a year, and it's all these local tech companies. They go after. They have high school students that do all kinds of stuff out
that's
there.
great.
They have. I mean, it's a really dynamite thing, but it's an incubator. It's a small incubator company. Nonprofit that helps small businesses get up and running, and then they bring them out, and somebody like you would be
I definitely have to check that out.
yeah
Yeah, because we help out some of the other ones where we'll provide like derelict hardware for for people to take apart and look at and kind of go through it. So we help out in the nonprofit charity sides too.
yeah
Those are the ones that we find need the most help because their dollar is stretched way beyond its capacity to hold together.
yeah
And IT is always last.
Yeah.
It is always last, and it needs help. Yeah, so I'm on a couple of committees for a couple of charities because they needed that help, but they didn't have the money. So I will donate my time and walk them through. And there's been a couple of incidences where they're calling me going, "What should I do?" And I'm like, "Hang up the phone." Dial the law enforcement. I'll submit the ticket to the FBI. Like, cut off everything you possibly can. But had I not been there, I don't know who they would have turned to.
Yeah.
So it's trying to get that word out.
Do you TikTok dance or anything about IT stuff?
All right, so let's talk about TikTok. Any tech company worth their weight is not using TikTok because we could probably turn this into a whole new podcast if you want to talk about TikTok and the security behind that and what information you're actually giving up when you use the app is super scary. So what's really scary about TikTok is when you load the app on your phone and you accept its terms and policies, you are accepting 100% full access to your phone. Every swipe, every key type, every search, everything that you do is you're legally allowing for them to catalog and collect. And whatever they do with that information is nobody knows. Obviously, the federal government has talked about banning it. Certain states have banned its use. Military is not allowed to have it on their phone because it gives full access to the mic, it gives full access to the camera. It gives a lot of access that people don't realize. When you go to your app for your bank account, all of that gets cataloged. Everything that you're using gets cataloged. TikTok should not be used. I think there's ways to educate, like especially like the kids. Like I told my kids, like, hey, you can't have TikTok. No, that's not going to happen. I don't think I've ever installed the app, ever. But Joe Rogan was the one that kind of pulled it out and uncovered the terms and services, and he brought light to what was in there. So I'd love to tell you that I sat down and read those. I didn't. I got I started hearing about it, then I started to do my research, and then it is not good. Like, we're a proponent to do not have it on your phone.
It is kind of freaky. I was just I bought these like zero proof Aperol spritz things, and I was talking about them, and I let like my partner know. I was like, I bet you when I pull up TikTok, my second video is gonna be an Aperol spritz.
Yeah.
And I showed him. I was like, it took me like maybe 3 swipes, and then it's like Aperol spritzes. People are drinking Aperol spritzes. It's so crazy. And I always tell him, I'm like, whatever I talk about, it just ends up on my feed.
And they like to tell you that it's an algorithm. It's not.
No, so that's okay. So why would wrestling shoes pop up on my feed? So check this out.
Dude, in 15 minutes, I'm going to have a wrestling shoe
No, listen.
add-on.
No, this is the craziest thing. My stepson and I were talking about he's a wrestler, and we love Jordan Burroughs.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, Jordan Burroughs just dropped a new shoe with a different company. He moved away from Asics and he's going with this different company." Or he's telling me this. Okay?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, blah blah blah." Instagram, 2 swipes up, Jordan Burroughs new shoes just dropped, blah 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 blah. And I was like, I shouldn't be getting that.
No, and they say that the like our phones, right, our Apples, our Androids, they'll tell you when the mic is in use. I don't think it's being 100% honest.
I don't think it's being honest at all.
No, I really don't. And because all these apps are listening, and there's other forms of information out there other than myself. You can find this where like people are seeing where Instagram is using the mic when it says that it's not. Certain things like that are happening. One of the biggest ones that we shed light on, of course, was TikTok. But just because TikTok's a Chinese-based company, it got a little bit more of that notoriety versus Instagram. It's America's company, right? It's doing the same thing. I'm sorry. I remember when Facebook first came out, and they didn't even really have the marketing model, but they were a $1 billion company. I was the proponent of don't sign up for Facebook. They're selling your data. And everybody thought I was that strange conspiracy theorist, right? Where I was like, they're selling your data. Think about it. How are they making money? There's no revenue stream here. Then they looped in the marketing. But I was already like, never getting on Facebook. Not going to happen. And then slowly it came out like, hey, yeah, they're selling the information. This information's going to the government. There's funding here. And it's like always follow the dollars, I guess, is the easy answer, right? And then mitigate your risk.
Okay.
Don't use Facebook. No, just kidding.
We're doomed.
Scary.
Yeah. So you want to talk about something fun?
If people wanted to hire you, bring you on, where would they track you down?
Yeah, so track us down. Our domain is actually a lot easier than its original, so it's just 7thdi.com, so the number 7thdi.com. They can email hello@7thdi.com. Somebody will reach out to them pretty quick. We're on Instagram, Facebook, a lot of the Twitter. We do posts. I think we do about 5 Twitter posts a day. LinkedIn, just look for Seventh Dimension.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Josh, for joining us today. We're going to have his information down below if anyone wants to touch base with him and reach out to him, which I feel like at this point we all should.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I do want to call you, and I do want to have you come in, and I do want to have you as a partner.
So you want one of our assessments?
Yes, I do. I do want to have you as a partner. I think it's necessary, especially for our business. I think it is super necessary to make sure, like, we have a lot of stuff in place, but I think just having that extra wall of protection would be even better.
Yeah, to help out, especially for like your listeners too, if they can mention your guys' show, we'll do a free assessment for them. Typically, It's $500 basic.
Okay.
So if you guys want to use that, that'd be great too. Just to not only help us out, but it also helps out your listeners get a little bit of something extra out of this.
Nice.
So you heard that now. You can get a free assessment. So feel free to subscribe to the Our Town podcast and like and follow for more.